Well, here we are on Monday, and there's several songs about Monday, Pat. There's
Haven't they?
that one. What's his
I
name?
don't like Mondays.
I don't like Mondays, but there also was a song called "Monday, Monday" by the Mamas and the
The
Papas.
Papas, yeah, that
Remember
was
that?
way back in the day.
Do you remember Mama Cass?
Yeah, a big lady.
That's right. Now you were allowed to
Yeah.
say that Mama Cass was big, and
Uh,
Mama Cass was. There's
I
a
think
line in one
that
of
was
the
nearly
songs.
her. That was not nearly her brand,
That's right. There's a
Mama
line in
Cass.
one of their
Yeah,
songs where they make a
uh,
reference to how
yeah.
fat Mama Cass is getting.
Aye,
But you daren't say that now. As I discovered.
absolutely not.
I
Speaking as
discovered.
a thin person myself.
Yeah. I only see
Yeah.
your head, Pat, so I think you've quite
That's
a
how you wouldn't really
shapely
want to
head.
see much more.
Okay. So we're going to go and have a look at least two things. Well, the first
Yeah,
one and the obvious one is what's been preoccupying the headlines here and bloody well everywhere. In fact, certainly in Europe, is this
yeah,
Ryanair hijack where
yeah.
the plane was bound for, I've forgotten where it was bound for.
Lithuania, as far as I remember.
Lithuania, yeah, and Belarus. Uh,
Yeah,
and well, they said there was a bomb scare,
yeah.
sent jets to sort of lead it into Belarus, and
Basically force it in.
and then they took this guy, a journalist, dissident
Yeah,
journalist, and arrested him, and I think his girlfriend as well. So the
yeah,
question is, what are they going to do about this? What are they going to do? And people are really up in arms. Everybody, from
yeah,
journalists to governments to,
yeah,
well, just about anybody. What do
yeah.
you think, Pat? Would you share their outrage?
Oh, absolutely. This. I think Simon Coveney he says it was aviation piracy.
Hmm.
Jude, this guy. Apparently, there's no bomb. There was no
No.
emergency. This is basically high tech piracy and kidnapping. This guy, I think the ruler of Belarus is, I think his name is Alexander Lukashenko,
I look
and he's
yeah.
an authoritarian. He's been getting away with it. He's locked up most of the opposition.
Hmm.
He is. Others have gone into exile.
Hmm.
The EU has give some sanctions, but puny. They've done very little. But this is a different ballgame. We know the way that happens a lot of time in the EU, Jude. Because of different countries have different vested interests. Usually the common line they get is the line of least resistance.
Yeah.
We'll slap somebody, maybe the prime minister, he can't travel or something. But this time, right, Ireland's involved. The plane is registered in Poland. Poland's involved. It was leaving Greece. Greece is involved. Lithuania is involved. And of course, Jude, it's deadly serious. If he gets away with this, what happens next?
Yeah.
This guy, I heard a wee bit in the news this morning. Apparently, this guy he writes a blog, but like yourself, Jude. And the government in Belarus really hate him big time. Now the thing about him is, they've now got him, and apparently there were 5 people didn't get on the plane again. Your man and his girlfriend or partner, and apparently 3 KGB agents who were on the plane. So it's deadly serious, Jude. It really, really is serious.
I think a lot of people would identify it the way you've done, and certainly whenever you hear about an ordinary flight, we've all been on Ryanair at some stage.
Flights, yeah.
And then suddenly these jets are coming in and forcing it to land, and there's talk about a bomb, and you're going to somewhere you don't know where you're going to, and you don't want to go there. So there's all sorts of reasons, but I just want to say this before we get into it. NATO spoke out, US spoke out, EU spoke out, Ireland spoke out, and all sorts of other people. They all were appalled by it, and they've warned that there's going to be consequences for this.
Yeah.
But I cannot help, Pat, but compare it to the topic we were discussing on Friday. Compare this outrage to the response to over 60 Gaza children not being threatened, but being killed. Never a word against their killers. No. Did Neil Arden stand up and say this is simply will not have this? Did the US stand up and say it? Did the
not
EU?
At all.
No. See, I think we have to keep these things in perspective. Now we can go and talk about this in a minute, and it is important. But it just shows you how skewed our values are. We don't expect them anymore.
There's something totally amoral. Never mind immoral, amoral. That we can see all that in our screens. We saw that missiles going into buildings in Gaza. We knew there were people dying in Gaza, and yet we are told not to believe our eyes that these people who are being killed are terrorists. No, they're not, Jude, and we all know they're not. But by the way, there's one thing that I think the governments are way behind the on the ground. You know, the people on the ground. Jude, I think I mentioned this last week. No, okay, it's TikTok, but apparently there was 2 billion hits or likes or whatever on TikTok. I stand with Palestine.
Yeah.
There was only something like 18 million. I stand with Israel. So I think the people on the ground right across the world are saying, you know, the American government and the British government may be amoral, but the people on the ground can see for themselves, and it's not helping. Jude, there's a lot of people sort of saying this is not the way we want to go.
You can't. I would agree, but unfortunately, at the moment, the guys with their hands and the levers of power are keeping it their way. Okay, let's get back to the topic. If it's as I read it, if it's that way that Lukashenko is holding on to power, has rigged the elections against this woman.
Yeah, he's apparently rigged the elections again. Yeah,
Tikavoshkaya or something. That he in fact is being sort of brazen-faced and holding on to power, which he's had for so long. Again, I always say you wouldn't want that, and a guy like that shouldn't be allowed away with the things. Again, I would introduce a cautionary note. The West, when it wants somebody removed, it does all sorts of stuff. I mean, in Venezuela, they were for getting rid of the guy who was running things, and they've made life there hell. Castro, you mentioned Castro in the States, and they all say he's a villain. You know, he's a So I think we have to keep in mind the possibility that the West is using what might in fact be an injustice and making it into a monstrous injustice for their own ends.
Jude, the only thing I would say about that is I haven't disagreed with a word you said, but hey, there's something seriously escalatory, and forcing a passenger plane that's on a normal routine journey for just so you can get somebody who disagrees with you off it. Now, you use your own Air Force to sort of nearly force them in, and you take this guy off. And apparently, when he was leaving the plane, he turned around to somebody. He said, "This is a death sentence." Now, in other words, he'll disappear when he's in Belarus, like a lot of other people. So, but the whole thing too. But there's another issue. The whole concept of freedom to travel without this sort of thing, like me and you traveling anywhere. I would be very reluctant to fly over Israel these days, but the whole concept of your right to travel and express your views. This guy's seems to have been taken off because the government in Lithuania, Belarus, don't like his views.
That's right. I do think it's if we forget about those, well, not forget, but just keep those other things in the background, that the West will present something in a particular light. Incidentally, I heard that there was Belarus put in a song for Eurovision, and it was called "I Will Teach You." It featured lyrics like "I will teach you to toe the line."
Oh, lovely!
And they rejected it. They wouldn't take it. So they were told to go back and back up with another one, and they came back with another one. They had to ban it too. I don't know what happened to Belarus.
You mentioned the Eurovision Song Contest. What's your view on the fact that the UK got 0 point?
I don't give a tuppenny toot. I honestly, I looked at it for a minute, not a minute, about 6 seconds. I couldn't stand it. I really couldn't. It's all this sort of disco lights and glass and. Guys,
anyway, back to the thing at hand.
Back to the thing. In fact, incidentally, speaking of what you're wearing, apparently you could get done in Belarus if you were wearing white socks with a red stripe, because apparently those are the colors of the flag of the opposition. So you could find yourself being landed in jail for things. Anyway, what can people do? I think the EU is talking about, it's not thinking of sending in troops, that's for sure, and they're very wise. But I think they're talking about economic sanctions of some kind.
Big time.
But they say, you see, that the difficulty with that is that'll affect the whole population. But I remember the time of the sanctions against South Africa, and who was the person leading the charge and saying, no, this will affect all of the ordinary people? Maggie Thatcher.
Thatcher, yes. Yeah. Who called Nelson Mandela a terrorist, yes.
Yeah, that's right. So we know that those sanctions were useful. So I personally would be in favor of applying sanctions. And for example, flying as well. If all the world's airlines refuse.
Jude, one of the things I heard today on RT News is there's seriously, whether they can do it or not, is banning all international flights from and to Belarus.
Yes.
I think that would have a major. They can fly into Russia as much as they want to, but to Europe and the rest of the world, not on.
Yeah. The other thing, mind you, when I was going to say it, just to come back a moment, is one of the things they're saying is this guy rigged this election. He wouldn't. What's the last guy that said that the election was rigged?
Yeah, look at him. You've raised a very good point, because there is a growth in authoritarianism. Like Boris Johnson, him and Dominic Cummings basically said, the norms, the conventions that sort of bind society or parliaments together, to hell with that. We'll do whatever we want. The rules don't apply to us. Trump basically, they said the same and came very close to getting the second term. And he has attacked the judiciary. He's attacked American foreign policy. He's attacked their allies. And he then look at the guy in Brazil, the guy in Hungary, and there's a growing number of them.
Yeah. So I think you're right to stress that any of the charges that are leveled against this guy in Belarus may well be true, but just remember that there's some of those charges could be laid against the West as well.
Absolutely.
It's kind of tricky. I would like to see the EU acting in unison, whatever they do, and being effective in their economic sanctions. I do think that the EU is in need of a break, because a lot of people are saying, there's Britain has got out, or the UK has got out of it, and they're going to do fine. And in any case, when it comes to the vaccine, the EU is useless, and the EU is not passing it out.
Jude, you just said something there. Apparently, let's just throw this at you, and it's a total digression, but you said it. Apparently, Britain's since they got out of the EU, they've signed some sort of deal with Australia. Britain's exports to Australia will increase by 6%. That's the good news. The bad news is Australian imports will increase to Britain will increase by 83%. So
and
I read that yesterday.
Yeah, the suggestion is too that an awful lot of farmers, Welsh hill farmers, and are going to be really up against it.
Absolutely, absolutely ruined. Yeah.
So I mean, in Boris's haste to make these headline trade deals, he's likely to make a lot of enemies. But then again, maybe he says there's not all that many farmers in it, and it's not that much of GDP anyway.
But they're fishing, Jude. Apparently, their biggest market is the EU, British fishermen, and now they can't sell fish to the EU.
That's right, because I remember interviewing guys for that Brexit book. I interviewed you for it as well, and the guys said about the fishermen, the Kilkeel fishermen and so on. They were saying, the EU is strapped and we're going out of business and so on. And it'll be great if we have Brexit, because we'll be able to catch as many fish as we want. And the guy said, aye, but have they thought about where they're going to sell them?
Absolutely.
Because most of the fish were going into the EU. So sort of short-term thinking.
That market's gone.
So anyway, what would you do, Pat? Would you urge a good, strong economic blocking of
Jude,
no flights? No flight. I think we identified that with that flights thing, because if you're like me, you're a nervous flyer, and the very thought that A, there might be a bomb on board, and B, that there mightn't be a bomb on board, but there's a couple of bloody fighter jets that are forcing us to go down somewhere we don't want to go.
Exactly.
Forget it, I can do it.
But Jude, they come out this morning that they did legally with our Belarus. Michal Martin described it this evening as nonsense. And around lunchtime there.
What did he describe as Pat? What did he say?
Their excuse that it was totally legal what they have done, forcing the plane down. Jude, it's not. And Jude, the big issue here, I take totally what you're saying about other events in the past, but this one does have I think it's a serious escalation when you force down a plane and carrying a passenger plane to get to somebody that you can't get any other way.
Aye, that's right. I think they need to do something so that anybody who's even thinking about that would have a second thought or a third thought about it. Anyway, I think we've done as much as we can with that. There's been an awful lot of hand wringing about it. It'll just be interesting to see to what extent they follow up the hand wringing with some effective action. And I'm particularly interested in seeing how the EU responds, because I'd like to see them score a win for a change. Now, coming closer to home, Pat, coming closer to home. I did a blog about this today. I think it was today. The state of the DUP. They're really, really in bad shape, mainly because of if the polls are to be believed, and they do say the margin of error is usually about plus
about
or minus
2%,
3.
33%.
Now, the polls show Sinn Féin is in the north at 25%, and it shows the DUP at 16%, and the Alliance at 16% as well. What do you think of it? Are we too bound up with polls? There's not going to be an election for another year.
No, Judy, I know there's a whole lot of things can change, and usually when election time comes, you'll get the old, what do you say, identity politics. You know, the DUP will come out playing the card. We are the largest party, and if you don't vote for us, you will get Michelle O'Neill, and a lot of people who might be sort of meandering or thinking about going somewhere probably will, go back to beating the drum again for the DUP. But it's, at the minute, Jude, I read somewhere, I think it was Saturday, maybe the Belfast Telegraph, they did a poll and around, obviously somewhere in Northern Belfast, I presume, and they did something like 3,000 people, and of those people, it was a 3-1. The people thought Jeffrey Donaldson would have been a better leader. So in other words, the people in DUP who chose Edwin Poots were not reflective of opinion out on the street. So, and Poots only won by 19-17. So there's a cannibalization, or whatever word you want to use, already. They're starting to eat themselves because they're fighting already. And Poots is popular within the party, but not on the street. He's not going to take the leadership, the first ministership. So, by the way, Jude, here's a question for you. What happens? What's the symbolic situation going to be like if Michelle O'Neill goes in as first minister by a considerable majority?
Well, I don't think that there's much we should be too worried about it. I remember. I
know, but I'm asking in terms of unionism. They're celebrating the most what would you say, quietest celebrations in history, their centenary.
Next year it'll be May. Even Sinn Féin was to have a first minister. It'll be May next, so that'll be safely out of the commemorative year. But Martin McGuinness said that he didn't see what the fuss it was. There were during his time as deputy first minister, there was warnings. If you didn't go out and vote for the DUP, you could find yourself with Martin McGuinness as first minister. McGuinness said, if I am made first minister, my first action will be to designate both ministers, both the deputy first minister and the first minister, and give them one title, joint first minister, because that's effectively how they act. You see, the unionist community is very, very sensitive to symbols. And they're fearful, I suppose, and they're right to be, because if you had a Sinn Féin first minister, and just suppose you had an election in the south in, say, the next year or two, with Sinn Féin conceivably having a Sinn Féin Taoiseach, that's very unnerving. Even you still have the constitutional safety of, a majority has to vote. That's still scary. You're talking about the Poots been popular in the party, but not among the members, right? Think back to the last time that was the case. Not here, but in Britain. In Britain, in the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn was loathed by many of his comrades in the MPs, and in the party, he was massively popular. But who won? Did the party members that were so supportive of him, did they win in it? Not on your Nelly. The party members saw to it one way or another that they have Sir Keir Starmer. So don't bet on it that because Edwin seems out of step and is out of step with what Unionist thinking wants at the moment. And I'm amazed that we were both amazed because we predicted Jeffrey would win it. Here's my suspicion. I could be wrong, Pat, as I often am. My suspicion is that Edwin Poots is looking at the population changes. He's looking at the sinking appeal of the DUP. He's thinking about the loyalists. I think he's determined to push this thing to a point where not law and order will break down, but there'll be civic disturbance. There'll be difficulties in getting stuff in at all. The ports, because the ports are all places that they can maybe have a majority of people that are in control. So I have a notion that Edwin Poots may be thinking, this isn't going to work for us electorally, so we better do something else. And maybe he's going to push this whole thing to a head because he knows that there's a head of steam of objection from loyalism. So maybe to get people on the streets or cars being burnt or something, that might make Johnson think twice. Is that too Machiavellian?
That's too, well, in my opinion, yeah. And as well as that, Jude, that to me would be a massive Pandora's box.
Oh, I agree with you, totally.
And the other thing is about Jude, Dominic Cummings seemed to be reflecting a view. Now, this was a man who was right at the center of power. In fact, it was almost like Boris Johnson's brain. And he said he didn't give FUCK if Northern Ireland was towed out to sea. He really didn't care. Right. That, and you look at the situation in Scotland, which is very febrile as well. And Jude, I think that would be a real serious card for unions to play at this time. It would be very serious. Like, by the way, they don't have the support. They don't have the support of Britain anymore. And the last thing Britain wants is trouble on the streets again.
But don't you? Well, they don't have to. I don't think Edmund's going to lead the troops to somewhere and say do this or do that.
No,
he's going to sort of code words. What is it? Dog whistle stuff.
Yeah, dog whistles. Yeah,
where he hopes that. Well, again, I'm only guessing, but it is a possibility that he would hope that there'd be sufficient unrest within loyalist and working class unionist communities.
But Jude, could you not come at it the other way? Look, Doug Beattie's got a bounce in the puck. He's got, and they're going to pass to 14%. And Doug has already come out. Mike Nesbitt, even though he didn't connect that much, and Naomi Long is also saying that the only way, and please, I don't mean that's the way patronizing the way it sounds. No, the ways some people refer to Trump supporters as deplorables, but the smart unions must know, and I mean must know, that the only way they can maintain the union is to get on board soft nationalism.
Yes,
nationalism.
Yes, absolutely.
And there is no way Edwin Poots on that. So if they're really interested in keeping Northern Ireland within the union, they had better change course. If they think Poots and going back towards that, the founding fathers' viewpoint of Northern Ireland, where there's a majority rule and the rest is, well, that'll suit the Nationals as well.
Well, you'd like to think so. That is to say, as long as you don't introduce this thing of force. Don't forget that young guy, Joel
Keys,
who said, well, we're not going to, can't take it off the table. And to be honest, I agree with him that, let's face it, almost no country in the world virtually will take force off the table if they think it's going to be necessary. But it's a factor, and it's the one card I think that can be played by unionism that could be a winning card. Right back to 1912 in the Ulster Covenant.
No, Jude, I don't agree with you. No, Jude, I definitely don't agree.
This is all of Britain. Britain wanted it to give home rule to Ireland, and these guys, they kicked up such a stink that Britain had to back off.
But Jude, that was then. This is now. The world is a very different place. There was the old colonial rule. There was all that sorts of stuff going on, and the old colonels, and they had their houses, and they were half of them were Anglo-Irish, and the Curragh Camp Mutiny, and all this sort of stuff. Jude, in 2021, nobody gives a monkeys. Nobody is going to come and fight. I don't think the British security service is going to come to the aid of loyalists like they did in the early part of the 1970s and so on. We've had our civil war. Nobody wants to go back to it. And I don't think they're going to get too much support. Who are they going to fight, by the way? Are loyalists going to fight against their own state, to stay in their own state?
The last day we talked about this, I said about...
they started out killing Catholics again, I know. Yeah,
I suppose they started doing that. That would force Britain to act in some way to make sure that stopped.
But it might possibly force Britain to act on the side of nationalism for a change.
Well, that's true, yeah. It's a very difficult one. I just would keep your eye on that. That young guy spoke a truth, whether we like it or not.
I'm well aware of it.
Unionism has not taken force off the table. So that could be it's hard to think of any other logic attached to Edwin Poots' stumbling around. because he's heading the wrong way, as you say. Everything indicates that the only way to keep Northern Ireland in existence is to keep soft nationalism happy. So where they say, sure, it's good enough. We get the NHS. And,
and then the constitutional position doesn't change.
That's right.
Like there's a growing number of people who call themselves Northern Irish, neither British nor Irish. And now that surely any smart DUP person would say those are the people. You don't alienate those people. You reel them in.
Oh, you like to think so? Mind you, Joe Brawley said they've missed the boat. He said they've missed the boat for the sort of soft nationalists or those nationalists.
Like people I know who years ago would have been very soft have sort of become to hell with this.
Well, you see, that's what they perhaps have in mind, that going for the soft vote is no longer manageable. So that's the only other things left to us is go terribly hard, right? And
possibly.
I know it appears Edmund Poots isn't sufficiently hard, right? They have to move on to Jude.
They have to go to Jim Alistair.
Anyway, I think this the phrase I jotted down with regard to this conceivably could be the DUP's Malvinas moment.
Yeah, Malvinas.
Aye, because when Thatcher was up against the wall, what did she do? She created armed action. Sent
sending troops all the way to a place where the only thing was sheep.
Aye, but it worked beautifully.
She was the most unpopular prime minister, almost certainly lose it, and then she won by a landslide.
Well, there you are. You see, might something along. I'm not saying that Edmund's going to send gunboats to Argentina or anywhere.
Or don't know how to.
He might do things that were, again, force is on the agenda, and people have to stop on their tracks and deal with it somehow. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I can't help but almost have sympathy for the way the DUP's fortunes have dwindled. And I'll tell you another thing, I don't think they're going to go much up. I don't think, in terms of electoral politics, I don't see them making massive gains between now and
then. No, Jude, and it comes down to one thing, Brexit. Their arrogance, their total disregard of the feelings of many people, their behaviour during the whole Brexit thing, and their mishandling of it. They went for the hardest Brexit possible to ensure their Britishness and to not worrying about the nationalists or what their viewpoints were or the other sectors of society in Northern Ireland. And they got their reward, karma.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly, karma. Yeah, so Arlene was right. She said, be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
She should have been talking to her members and not the nationalist community. Okay, a final little thing. You spelt out a word earlier on in this chat, and I'm wondering why you did that. The word was F-U-C-K.
Yeah.
Did you think I didn't know how to spell that word, Pat? Or?
No. Do you worry about your education? Because I know you were a very poor scholar, as my mother used to say.
Well, why, talk to me about that. Why did you not say fuck?
Jude, I'm an old-fashioned journalist, and we didn't put in words like F-U-C-K in papers, and we didn't put in I'll spell this shit, or we didn't put in, and it was just the old way that we just didn't do it. Language was language.
I think
and by the way, hey, like Jude, I swear at an industrial level when I am not.
I know that.
And in fact, Mark McFadden, who works for UT, and now works for UTV, once wrote something along those lines that the only person he knew could swear on an industrial level. So, by the way, I'd like to point this out. I read the last day that people who swear actually have a very good vocabulary, and I would like to suggest that is true. But I don't think, Jude, when I hear somebody swearing and all the rest during public debate, I sometimes get the impression, are you trying to impress someone? Are you trying to shock someone? Or are you letting on that you are something that you're really not?
Yes,
so, I stick to the points that you're making, and Sorry,
I agree with you. I mean, this is just my bias, but I find most young comedians, stand-up comedians, they use the F word or fuck.
Every second word.
Every second is just tedious. But I just find it interesting that we use this word, we hear this word every single day. I'm sure for it. Maybe not during lockdown. Well, yeah, it could be at home. You'd hear it.
You'd hear it not mate.
So what is it that, I mean, why don't we just say it? There was a time when, for example, The Guardian, which is one of the papers that I read, very respectable paper, used to have a blank, an F and a blank. It doesn't do that anymore. It says the word. So why are we, in say in a Zoom chat like this, why are we reluctant to say the word if that's what we're thinking of?
Yeah, you've got a point. It's just a convention with me more than anything else. I haven't done it. Like, Jude, I'm 67 years of age. I've been involved in the media game for close on 45, 48 years. And that was just the old school way of doing things, and I haven't really changed. And by the way, I don't really like swearing. Even when I find myself about to swear on air, I said, "No, don't." There's just something about it. But I take your point. By the way, there's one other thing. The Shakespeare of songwriting, Bob Dylan is here today.
Yes.
Did you ever hear him use rude words on any of his songs?
No, I don't think he did. Actually, no. He used all sorts of confusing words, but he didn't.
One of my dear wife's favorite was Rosemary Lily and the Jack of Hearts. Have you listened to one song? It's on for about 8 minutes.
Well, I'll have to
it's like a fable. It's unbelievable song.
So many of his songs are like that. But it is. What about this? If you went into an art gallery, Pat, and you looked at modern art, you wouldn't have a bloody clue what it was about, and you'd get fed up and you'd say, for God's sake. Well, all right, it's a genius piece of work, but it's not for me.
Well, I don't get that, so no point in me saying it. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So is the same thing not apply to Bob Dylan? Because I can barely think of a single song. Well, I suppose I could think of some, but an awful lot of them have a series of images and words, and I don't know where they're coming from, what exactly he's saying.
Exactly. But Jude, look at these now. Hold on. See, I would definitely shoot you if you started singing like Bob Dylan. 5 minutes of Bob Dylan. No, that nasal. I'm going, good merciful Jesus. Put me in her cell and start giving me white noise rather than Bob Dylan. But I will look right, Jude, blowing in the wind. Come on, and the times there are changing. The anti-war movement, the civil rights movement in America way back. And remember, he wrote a song about Reuben Carter. I remember the guy who was jailed for about 30 years. Yes. I remember too. He wrote. But way back, Jude, I know more of the old ones, like A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, that's all that. And Lady, those were brilliant songs. Dude. They really, really were. And Ronan Collins on RT today from 12 and 1, he's a show. And today he just played one song after about Bob Dylan. But it was by different artists. Jude, but he has influenced country music. He's influenced pop music, he's influenced blues, he's gone, and he's obviously folk and so on. And somebody said he stole more from Irish folk music than anywhere else in the world. Well, he sold 100 million records. What's saying something?
Yeah, he when he emerged first, he was down in Greenwich Village when the Clancy brothers were there.
Liam Clancy,
and they quite liked them, I gather, and they quite liked him. I agree. His early songs are very, they're not as puzzling. But once you get on Knocking on Heaven's Door, I mean, that's not that late. But it's still a series of vivid images. But, what they mean, I don't know. So it's like a canvas where you say, my God, that's a marvelous color there. Look at all those colors. But I haven't a clue.
Right. I'll come back and you, Dr. Collins, soon. You're the academic here. No, you taught English for a long while, right? Bob Dylan, he was given the Nobel Prize for Literature. Do you agree?
I don't agree. I don't think Bob Dylan's songs, for a start, he's a songwriter, and that's not literature. Songs are songs. I think I remember with the kids in school, when I taught high school, they were always wanting to bring in lyrics of songs so we could study those. And frankly, I thought that was a mistake, because the songs are written to be sung. So you're taking away half of the thing. I'd say almost the same thing about Shakespeare. Shakespeare was made to be acted, not to be sitting and looking at the thing. So I think it's a mistake to give, I suppose they're giving him a mark of recognition.
Excuse me, hold on. Are you saying that if you were in charge, Shakespeare wouldn't get the Nobel Prize either?
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
I'd just like to put that words into your mouth. I just thought that's what you're saying.
Thanks very much. Okay, but I just tried to clarify things. Anyway, I come back two things about that Bob Dylan and the Nobel Prize. One is they give it to him, and I don't think they should have because he's a singer. If they'd given him a Nobel Prize as a songwriter, I would have said, it makes sense. They give it for literature, and I don't think that makes sense. The second thing is Dylan had nothing but contempt for it. You know, it took God's
He didn't even go there, did he?
He wouldn't go at first. I think he turned up eventually, put on a necktie.
It didn't speak to anybody and left.
So I sort of misplaced. But yes, he is. He's a guy who changed pop music. The guy who first I heard speaking about him was one of the Beatles. John Lennon mentioned this guy that they'd seen, and he's fantastic. And they say that John Lennon was so influenced by him that he began to start singing a bit like him, you know?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that happens.
It's like a cat wheeling. But apparently, most songs in the 1960s were the 3-minute songs because and apparently they say commercial music was changed totally by Dylan. I think I'm not 100% certain of this, but I think it was like a Rolling Stone went on for 6 or 7 minutes. You know, and I got to number 3 or number 2 in America, you know, and so on. And they said, and then and then of course along came people like Creedence Revival with a song went on. I heard it through the grapevine, went on for about 10 minutes. Which was no great help. Now that I think on it.
I'm filled with admiration for him and some of the song. Well, you see, it's like many things. I remember those songs from my youth when I was young.
Yes.
I was young, so in a way, I'm admiring when I was young as much as I'm admiring Bob Dylan. But I remember the first time I heard him, I know exactly the place it was. It was in Derry, actually. It was in Garvin Downey's, the house where Garvin Downey's father grew up, that family. And I remember Kevin Downey saying, no, you gotta listen to this guy. He's not a bit like the Beatles. And I say, God, I don't know. So he put on Blowing on the Wind. That was it. That was it. It's amazing.
So
I saw him one time, you know. Did I tell you?
Did you?
I did. I saw him in Dublin. And
was he good?
Well, I thought he was very good. Wait, wasn't, you know, I think sometimes somebody live can be a wee bit of a letdown because the studio gets perfection. But no, he's pretty damn good. The first half of the show was him with the guitar. The second half of the show, he comes out. And of course, he comes out and he never bows, didn't bow. It was a strange feeling that you only realized that there was such a thing as bowing when he walked out and started playing. You know,
no acknowledgement of it.
It was very interesting. And then the second half, you had the electronic backing and so on. And some of the crowd began to boo. And a guy stood up, a real dub stood up and said, don't mind them, Bob, play away. So I was with him. I thought I think he played like a Rolling Stone as well. It was great. But I mean, it's a bit daft. Why does he keep on recording songs with that voice gone to hell?
But Jude, there are some people I know, and there's one farmer colleague comes to mind who was obsessional about Bob Dylan. You know, and I said to him one day, you know, like, Jesus, you know, a cat getting someone stuck up its backside sounds better than Bob Dylan singing. And he was having none of it. You know, he said, no, you missed the point, the authenticity of it and the real of it and so on. And that Bob Dylan nearly lived his life as a sort of on the basis of Bob Dylan's songs. So there you go.
But you see, when those early songs, he didn't have a conventionally good voice. Well, he had a fair voice, but you're able to handle it, the nasal stuff. But it's just later on his voice is getting, it's like Paul McCartney, his voice is getting cracked and to a point that's ridiculous. The last thing I'll say about him is this: he refused to stick by his own songs. Like, he would come out with a different tune to the bloody song that you were expecting. And I find that very irritating.
I'll just leave it with this too. There's one song called Fare Thee Well, and without question, it's a direct steal from The Leaving of Liverpool.
All right.
So on that, I'll leave it.
Yeah. Well, the one that I would leave you with is the dubious song, which has got a dubious sentiment. Some people would say, and in other ways, I think it's great. Forever Young. Forever Young. To me, I've heard various versions of that. And to be honest, they were very good too. but his is the best. God, it's beautiful. The imagery in it. Now that's a song I can totally understand and agree with. Although some people say that's daft, telling people to remain young. You should.
Hey, one thing you have left out. If you want to listen, Wagon Wheel by Nathan Carter was also written by Bob Dylan.
Okay, Pat. Thanks very much.
All the best, Jude. Bye.